being recorded and it'll be uploaded to our YouTube channel a few days after the event. It will be on our upcoming announcements on Tuesday in the server. Awesome. See a lot of Bay Area folks. And anyone is welcome to turn on their camera if you guys want to be on TV. We're live on YouTube as well. And we'll be taking a group photo afterwards. And so make sure to stay if you guys want to be on a group photo and featured on other social media platforms. Oh, wow, there's a lot of people in here. I'm super, super excited. Hope you guys are excited as well. Let's see how many people my Zoom can hold and push the limits of everything. And our admins, Marissa and Jess, will be helping out capturing questions on the chat. All right, you guys can stay on Zoom. I like Zoom because you can interact with people. So if you ask questions, we're seeing them on Zoom because it's hard to moderate both the YouTube and Zoom chat. We'll be giving one more minute and we'll officially get started for everybody to come in. And if you're new, let us know where you're tuning in from and what city you're from and what you're most excited to learn about. All right, let's get started. All right, welcome everybody. Thank you all for coming. I'm Grace. I founded the Design Buddies community back in April of this year. And so far we've seen it grown to nearly 10,000 members and we got partnered with Discord itself. So if you don't know what Design Buddies is a large Discord community with a lot of people. Like we have a free mentorship program, lots of events like this, free resources, clubs, and anything you can imagine is in there. With that said, I'm really excited for this event and for just some housekeeping things. I'll be sharing a networking sheet in the chat next. So you guys can plug your LinkedIn, connect with other attendees, and please keep all promotional material in that networking sheet. And at the end, we'll be ending with a group photo and also following a 30-minute presentation, we'll be giving a Q&A section at the end. So feel free to chime in the chat anytime you have questions, and we'll either be unmuting people after they raise their hand or reading them off from the chat. And that said, I'm really excited to have Olia on. She is UI UX designs on Instagram. She creates a lot of really great Instagram content for teaching design, and she's also a senior product designer at Strava. And I love Strava. It's the best running app. So if you guys are an athlete, definitely download Strava, follow each other on Strava, and also a part-time instructor for UC Berkeley Extension. And that I'll take it away to Olia.
Yeah, hi all. Super excited to be here today. Yeah, see some people are waving. So yeah, my gosh, I cannot believe you are all I saw them at the chat, and you are all located all over the world. That's amazing. So let me actually start sharing my screen and go directly into my presentation that I prepared for all of you. So can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Just want to make sure. And by the way, if something happens to my internet, you stopped hearing me at some point, please let me know as soon as possible so I won't be talking to myself only. So yeah, thanks Grace for the intro. So just for you who don't know me, my name is Olia Birulia. And sorry, so yeah, I am a UI UX designer. I'm based in San Francisco. However, right now I'm in Hawaii just because of the pandemic. I decided to spend some time. Currently, I work for Strava as a senior product designer, but previously I worked for Visa for a few years as a senior UX designer. And before that, I actually worked for small, medium-sized startups such as Verify, ThoughtSpot, and many, many others, just to name a few. So I don't have a lot of actually corporate experience, so I kind of prefer working with startups. Yeah, so teaching and education is my passion. And yeah, as Grace mentioned, I'm teaching at UC Berkeley. I'm teaching UX portfolio class, surprise, surprise. And I'm also doing some mentorship on Design Lab platform. I'm not sure if you've heard about that, but they are providing some really good classes for designers. And I'm also doing some private coaching. And so I also want to touch slightly on my personal life. So I love traveling a lot, and I did 2 cross-country road trips a while ago. I drove from San Francisco all the way to New York and from Maine all the way to Key West. I'm also a runner, so I use Strava pretty much every day. I also participate in Spartan races, and while I was at Hawaii, in Hawaii, I actually finally learned how to swim. So now, as soon as quarantine or like pandemic, like we will get to normal life, hopefully very soon, I hope I will be able to join my first triathlon. And yeah, thanks for mentioning. So one of my biggest passions right now is UI UX Design's Instagram account, where I have more than 70K followers, which is like an amazing community of designers. And I actually started this as just, like sharing other designers' work to inspire the community. But now I changed the goal a bit, and I'm sharing mostly my experience and my insights and tips. Okay, now let's go to this slide. I would like to learn more about you. And like throughout my career, I used all the different design tools, from Sketch to InVision to Adobe tools. And yeah, since I started a while ago, my first tool was Photoshop. It's hard to believe, but like my first web designs I created in Photoshop. But I would like to learn more about you, as I said. So if it's possible, please in chat, can you mention what is your favorite design tool? Oh, wow. Okay, I see a lot of Figma, Sketch, XD, UI. Oh, I'm not even familiar with this one. Interesting. So I'm going to learn new things today as well. Axure, Figma, Create. Cool. Yeah. Thanks a lot for sharing. Adobe XD, Marvel. Wow, a lot of great tools. That's amazing. I'm actually a big fan of Figma these days, and I use Figma for pretty much everything, for all the stages in my design process. And even I created this presentation, as you can see at the top. Unfortunately, I cannot get rid of the top banner, but yeah, so I use Figma to create this presentation. Okay, so now let's move directly to the design evening portfolio. So first of all, a portfolio is the most important requirement in the UX job application process. So remember that most companies even won't look at your application without a portfolio. So because it's one of the best ways to prove that you have the experience and skills to perform best in a design job. I'm pretty sure that you've heard before, so treat your portfolio like a design project. However, based on like some of my conversations with design students, I've realized that not everyone do really understand what this phrase means or what type of steps to follow to actually treat your portfolio like a design project. Okay, now let's take a look at the design process, and I'm pretty sure that all of you are familiar with this design thinking process, and probably many of you went through all the stages multiple times, but together, let's see how we can leverage the same process to design your design portfolio. So during the emphasize stage, similar to any design projects, it's important to remember and learn about your users and competitors to do some benchmarking. So it's important to identify your user personas to understand what they need from your UX portfolio. And if you are interviewing for a tech company or a small startup or a big tech corporation, your primary user personas are going to be a human resource recruiter and the hiring manager. Okay, so let's take a closer look at HR persona. HRs are pretty busy professionals since they look at about 20 to 50 applications per day. They spend 1 to 3 minutes per candidate. So this is super important to remember that your portfolio, someone is going to look at your portfolio only for 1 to 3 minutes. So they are not designers, and they disqualify people that don't have a good match with the role description. So things that irritate HRs because they are not designers are broken links, spelling mistakes, and when files are hard to access. So they don't have time to read every word. This is, again, I just want to emphasize how important to remember that they don't have a lot of time. That's why they need the visual presentation and the resume and portfolio to be clean and easy to read. So it's important also to remember that HR's primary responsibility is to fill a position. So they actually want you to succeed. So ask as many questions as possible during your conversation with an HR person. Okay, up next is a hiring manager. So after you pass HR persona or HR person, the second person who is going to look at your portfolio is the hiring manager. And if you are interviewing for a design position, this is going to be a design manager or a lead designer. So it's also important to acknowledge that this person also super busy, and in addition to hiring a designer for an open role, they have like all other responsibilities. However, by the time a candidate gets to them, they have confidence that they match the requirements of the job description, and they want to see evidence of your skills, and most important of all, they want to see your thought process. So they want to see not only what you did, but why you did it. So some really quick learnings from just like looking at these personas. First of all, make your portfolio scannable. Make sure that you are using clear titles so HRs and hiring managers can quickly find what they are looking for. So the hierarchy is clear and easy to follow. Make sure that it's easy to find a resume, especially for an HR person. It's super important, and you will be surprised. Like I've seen so many portfolios without resumes, or these resumes that are super hard to find. So for hiring managers, make sure that you annotate screens to make it easy to follow, because they are looking for the design process, and make sure also that each design have an intention. So you don't just include pictures, as many pictures as possible. Make sure that each picture or each deliverable has a reason to be part of your portfolio. Up next is look at your competitors. So after you become familiar with your users, analyze who you are competing against. So before you create your portfolio, it's important to know what you are up against, as I mentioned. So take a moment to do a little research and compare and contrast you with your competitors. So research portfolios of employees of companies you like. So just to give you an example, let's say you would like to work for Google. So just take a look at people who are already work for Google and how their portfolios look. So during this research, think about questions such as what are the strengths of their portfolio, what are the weaknesses, and most importantly, what values do you provide that they don't? Okay, some of the learnings from just thinking about your competitors. So by looking at their portfolios, you will start noticing some patterns and common themes that you can use to improve your portfolio, as well as type of projects. So narrow down a selection of your work, choose only the work that align with the job you want, meaning that if you are interviewing for a mobile platform, make sure that you include mobile projects into your portfolio. So prospective employees and may be tempted to put any and every project in your portfolio to show the depth of your experience. So let's say you have a background in graphic design or illustration or web design, and it's really, I know it's super tempted to include everything, but please don't do that. So you want to focus on the projects that are going to resonate the most with your target market, so they can start to imagine the design you will create for them. Okay, so after the research, first of all, during the define stage, you will need to identify content or projects that you would like to include. So during this stage, you will also need to think about the medium or the tools that you are going to use to build your portfolio. So you will also need to start collecting all your assets, meaning pretty much any type of deliverables, images, photos, designs, wireframes, so pretty much anything. And also you will need to start writing your description. And this is where the work begins. First of all, include only your best work. So when someone looks at your portfolio, they try to form an opinion about your skills based on all your work. If they see both good and so-so work or bad work, it makes them think that so they cannot rely on you consistently. So like you might not be able to produce high quality designs all the time. So remember including a high number of projects, and this is a great example that I quickly put together. So this portfolio does not exist. It's just me, like it's just like a mock-up portfolio. So you can see that there are a lot of projects here, and it's really hard for an HR who has only 1 or 2 minutes actually to decide on what project to click. And also I'm pretty sure that like some of the projects are stronger, others are maybe not as strong. So remember including a higher number of projects to see more experience will actually cause more harm than good if those extra projects aren't your best work, and if it happens that an HR person actually clicks on one of those not your best work. And just to compare and contrast, this is a very similar looking portfolio, but yeah, you should think quality over quantity. Simply go through all the projects you've done and prioritize. So let's say if you have like 10 projects that you work throughout your career, think about the ones that are the strongest one. So which ones you are most proud of, which ones produce the best results, which ones best highlight your skills. And as a rule of thumb, if you have maybe like less than 2 years of experience, include 3 projects. If you are more experienced designer, you can include up to 6 projects. But I highly recommend not including more than 6 projects. And make sure that you show the very best one first. So it should be presented in kind of like in order from the best one to the not that best one. Okay, so the next one is ideation stage. And this is when you will start determining structure of your website. This is also a good moment to think about your personal brand, about your tone of voice. So UX is about the process, and that's exactly what you need to show on your portfolio. Hopefully by now you already heard that for a UX position, the expectation is that you will be presenting your portfolios as case studies, and those case studies should be as detailed as possible. So now let's just look at the anatomy of a design case study. So remember that, first of all, product design is about solving problems and satisfying needs. More than that, it's about solving the right problems. So the problems that really matter to your target group, the problems that make sense to solve from a business perspective. And so yeah, this is, as I said, like the kind of the generic structure of a case study. So inside the intro section, make sure that you answer questions such as what was the main problem you were solving, who were you solving the problem for. Also make sure that you include the project duration inside the intro section and how long did it take. Include the role you played as well. So the research section should include answers to questions such as what type of research did you conduct to define the problem and the audience? What insights did you get from your research? You can also share anecdotes and insights that paved the way to the project. So define section should include the process, all the deliverables that you created during the research section. You can include here your final personas, sitemap, and user flows for the project. Design, pretty straightforward. Here you include all the design sketches, wireframes. If you worked on the branding, you can also include branding elements, sketches, UI design. And also I've seen that some designers mention what was the favorite part of the design process. And last but not least, test. So what type of testing did you conduct during the project? Did you create a prototype? If you did, please include the prototype. And also this is like super important, not just talk about the method that you use here, but like what you've learned from testing your designs. Okay, so each case study is, each case study is a conclusion to the project. I've seen actually a lot of portfolios without any, like case studies without any conclusion or ending part. So you should definitely show the final solution inside the conclusion section and tell the story about what happened. So like you can talk about like, did it go live? How did it impact the metrics you wanted to improve? If it's possible, add some testimonials or quotes from user interviews or usability testing. So use what you have to give your case study a neutral ending and tie it together with the initial problem statement. So you should start with the problem statement, and at the end, you should end with the problem statement to make sure that you actually solve the problem. Okay, that's also a good time to start working on your brand. This is actually a bigger topic, so I won't be going very deep. However, just remember that companies seek more than just the portfolio. The portfolio is just a medium to sell your skills. And the most unique way to showcase them is to define who you are as a designer. So when you start working on your brand, define your goals, first of all, and who you want to be on the market. So this is the core that will make your portfolio memorable, and it will differentiate you from other designers. So how to start working on the brand? This is like the biggest problem in most cases. So just start reflecting on why you became interested in design, how that has changed over time, and what motivates you today as a designer. So based on those reflections, you can choose type, color, layout, graphics, and interactions for your portfolio, so they will reflect your brand as well. So just remember to stay true to your values. So like don't kind of pretend to be someone else, embrace whatever you already have. And the most exciting part for most designers is the design stage, where you actually start putting all the things together. This is pretty straightforward, but not a lot of people actually do understand how it's important to keep the design of your portfolio simple, because it's not about your portfolio, it's about the project. So project should be the focus of your design, of your portfolio, not your portfolio itself. And this is just an example of a really badly designed, very old and outdated website, but this is greatly shows you how when there are so many things that are coming your way, it becomes really hard to actually understand what is more important, what is less important. So sticking to a simple design lets the quality of your work speak for itself. So unless executed perfectly, things such as videos, animations, motion design, and like any type of tricks are less likely to will add things to your portfolio, but they will actually distract your users from your work. So the second important thing to remember, tell a story about each project you include. So because you are going to include only a few examples of your very best work, so from 3 to 6, you need to tell a compelling story about each project. So have a separate project to fully document the design problem, the process you followed, and the solution you delivered. So you should tell your users and show the step-by-step process, the process that you are following. You should explain why you did things, the background of your decisions, and the results. Another very important thing to remember, use photography of your designs in use. So a very common mistake with online portfolios is to display just exported images straight from Illustrator or Sketch, whatever tool you use. So not only does this make your site look flat and monotonous, it also gives your potential client no information about the context of the project or a sense of how it's being used in the wild. So to add visual variety, produce some high finished device mockups and take nice photos of your design in use. And so just to kind of show you an example, so this is a pretty nicely looking cards. However, as you can see, you don't get any information about the project itself. So the goal for your landing page should be to create as much interest in your project as possible, so hiring managers want to click into them. And by simply fixing them, like just using mockups and using titles and like small intro can provide so much helpful information for HRs and managers. So yeah, make sure that you give enough details at a high level to get readers to click into your project. Another super important tip, so make navigation visible. If your navigation is tucked away into a menu, it might be missed. And this is just like a really good example of a super simple menu where you can find everything you're looking for. So leaving the viewer feeling lost and unable to see all of your content is not a really good idea. And I've seen a lot of portfolios that use a hamburger menu. So I highly recommend you not to do that and don't hide your navigation. And last but not least, ask for feedback. So iteration is crucial for the success of your portfolio, just like any other product or project you will be working on. So make sure that you iterate and improve it on the go. Don't wait till the very last minute. Don't ask for feedback when like you have the final version of your portfolio. So once your portfolio is created, send it to others to provide feedback. So another set of eyes on your portfolio will catch small, tiny like spelling mistakes or grammar errors. So you will also understand if there are any confusion parts of the content and if the overall usability actually works. So as you interview with hiring managers, also make notes because you will start understanding what is working, what is not working on your portfolio. And then iterate and like make changes after each round of feedback. So seek feedback early when you are designing your portfolio. So yeah, don't wait till the very last minute when like a lot of designers in this have heard a lot like this is not the final, I'm still working on it, I still need to make improvements. So my portfolio is actually 2 years old by now and it's still not final and it's still like I'm still making improvements. I'm not sure when I will be actually doing those improvements, but yeah, just it's going to be like a living document. It's going to be like you will be making changes all the time. So don't wait till the final state because it will never actually happen. Okay, and so but just like after looking at multiple students' portfolios, I've compiled this list of the most common mistakes in UX portfolios, and I would like to share them with you so you can actually avoid doing them. So the first one is too little narrative, and this is actually very like if you have a background in graphic design or illustrations, this is a very common problem. So a lot of portfolios look like gallery of images, which might work for like a photographer or maybe an illustrator, but not for a UI UX designer or a product designer. So without storytelling about the project in your portfolio, it's not possible for the user to understand your project. So you should aim for around 300 to 400 words. However, it definitely depends on the project. Some projects are longer, some projects are shorter. So just maybe, like follow 50-50 rule, like 50% visuals, 50% of text. So your audience also wants to understand the steps that lead to that solution, how you went about defining and solving the design problem, what challenges you overcame, and ideally, what the result of the work were in the business terms. So the second common problem that I observed is lack of clarity about your project, role, and context. So let's start with the role. So most professional designers' work is collaborative in some way, and it's unlikely that you were responsible for 100 of the work on the project. So there is nothing wrong if you worked on a project with your teammates, if it was like a team of 5 people, and maybe you were responsible for different parts of the project. That's totally fine. Just make it super clear what exactly you did, what exactly you were responsible for, and mention all the other roles as well. So be open and transparent about how you contributed to the project. This is also actually for you an amazing opportunity to explain how you communicated and collaborated, and communication and collaboration are two very important skills, soft skills for a UI UX designer. So yeah, just use this as an opportunity to talk about how you communicated and collaborated with the rest of the team. So if you don't explain your role, and I've seen this so many times, it can lead to two very different conclusions. So the first one is that you did all the work, and actually it will be it will be pretty clear after you will be invited on site, and during the on-site conversation, more questions are going to be asked. So don't make this as a surprise information. So the second actually conclusion can be that you did none of the work. Like if you always talk about the project, like, and then because it's pretty much impossible to work on the project as one, just like as a lone designer. So yeah, it can lead to the conclusion that you did very little for the project if you are not very transparent about your responsibilities. So your role in the project and the structure of the team should be explained at the very beginning. So make sure that you include this information inside the intro section. In terms of the context and why context is important, so the financial business constraints can be different, the time pressure can be different. So pretty much everything can be different depending on the context. And if you don't explain the context in each case study, you are losing a super important information about the project and your experience. So if you face any challenges during the design process, make sure that you mention, because this is a huge and a super helpful experience for a designer, and this is something that you will be facing pretty much during each project. Okay, so less res, low res, or too large images. This is a very complex, it sounds very easy, but this is a very challenging actually thing to do, right? So getting image solution and file size right can be, yeah, super tricky, especially if you're including a lot of images on a single page, and especially if you don't have a background in graphic design or like any other digital design. So ideally establish the largest size that your image needs to appear on your site. So for example, let's say your template is 960 pixels wide at viewport size, and for sure these days you want to make sure that it looks good on retina displays. So you need to save 960 at 2x resolution. So you will need image files that are like 1920 pixels. There is no reason to make them bigger, because like this won't affect your image resolution, and it won't make the image look sharper or nicer on the screen. Also remember that you should probably save all your files in JPEG format that contain significant areas of photographic content, and use PNG format for any image that contains web graphics with large areas of flat color. Okay, neglecting usability on your portfolio website. So for anyone working or aspiring to work in UX, designing for usability over aesthetics should be second nature. So I've seen a lot of websites with navigation that doesn't follow standard design patterns, and it's especially bad, becomes bad on mobile. So make sure that your buttons, especially on mobile, the sizes are easy to tap on, so the links are not too small or font sizes are readable. So you should just at least meet the standards for good readability, for accessibility, and ease of use. So no explanation of why you did what you did. This is another super common problem and one of the biggest mistakes. So I quite often come across a case study that presents us almost like a design process template. So it sounds more like a list of common UX methods, something like, you know, like we did research and then we did ideation and then we did paper sketches and we did a digital prototype and then we tested it. So it's important to actually know the design process and the most common UX method, but this is just a baseline requirement. All of us, people, like all of the designers are familiar with the design process, so you don't need to kind of teach or remind other designers every time that this is the design process that they follow, because this is kind of expected from any designer. It doesn't matter how many years of experience you have. So what you can do instead, you should absolutely tell a story about your process of getting from problem statement to final outcome. This is essential. But instead of focusing on what you did, include why you did what you did. So, you know, like instead of saying we did the usability test, say exactly why did you decide to do a usability test. Also focus on what you have learned. So again, instead of like explaining the methodology, talk about the insights and learnings from the usability tests or from surveys or whatever methodology you decided to use. So making this the center of attention in your portfolio tells that you understand the tools we use in UX and they are just tools. So similar to any design tool such as Sketch, Figma, it doesn't really matter what tools you are using. It's more about the outcome and the final result. And my final thought here. So remember that portfolio will help you to get your foot in the door. However, for inside interview, you will need to have a deck with 2 to 3 projects. So your portfolio will be just used by you for the very first design, the interview stage. So when you are just talking to an HR or a hiring manager, but as soon as you get invited on site, please make sure that you create a presentation deck with 2 to 3 projects, depending on how much time you will be given, with super detailed explanation of your case studies, with a lot of visuals. So yeah, that won't be super professional if you just bring your online portfolio for a presentation. Okay, and that's the end of my presentation. Any questions?
Thank you so much. That was awesome. I loved how you compared the portfolio to the design thinking process because portfolio really is a UX project as well. And so for questions, we've been noting some in the chat, and general rule of thumb for the questions that actually we ask is that questions that are more general apply to everybody, but also not easily Googleable. And right now I'll be taking a few people if they want to unmute them. If you want to ask a question, like feel free to raise your hand and I'll unmute you. You can ask. If not, I'll like maybe you can wait a few minutes. I'll see if people raise their hand. If you'd like to ask, but you can also type in the chat as well. Let me just see, let me pull up the questions that we've noted. So we saw some people, oftentimes when we're starting out as a designer, we do a lot of hackathons. And then these are often our first projects that we have. What are the best way to display these type of projects from hackathons when they're just 2 days of work instead of usually a few weeks of work on your portfolio?
Yeah, I think it should be displayed pretty much the same, just like the case study format. However, just make it super clear, as I mentioned at the very beginning, that this was just like 2 days hackathon. That's why maybe the project is not as detailed as it could be. You can also at the end of the case study mention, like next steps or something that you would do in a different way. Let's say you can say something like, if I had more time, I would maybe do this and that to learn more about the user problems, or maybe like I would go through one more round of iterations for my high fidelity designs, or maybe I don't know, like there are so many things that you can do differently, right? So yeah, just be super transparent about the role, about the project itself, and the amount of time that it took you.
Awesome. I see oh wait, there's no raise hand button apparently on this updated Zoom. So Carolyn or Marissa has a question. Let me unmute her. How do I unmute? I had to find y'all in the list. So let me just do this really quick. Okay, I guess we'll go to Carolyn. Let me unmute you as well so you can ask your question. Okay. Usually I read off questions. All right, we'll go to our next question then, since I've asked them to unmute, but nothing has happened. So, so another question we got earlier is, when looking at competitive work, it gets really intimidating, especially when you're new to the industry or new to the workforce. How can we uphold the confidence to advertise ourselves to employers?
That's a really hard question. I think there is no like an easy kind of fix or solution for this one, because we all compare each other, and like I think the only thing that you can do, like, stop maybe thinking about others and focus on your skills. Like, don't think about the thing that you cannot control. Like, think about how you can improve as a designer. Like, if you see that maybe your portfolio is not as strong as someone else, so think about the steps how you can improve your portfolio and make it better, instead of like thinking that like you're maybe not good enough, or how you can compete with people who has more experience, or maybe they have like the skill that you don't have. And also remember that there is always going to be someone who is better than you, especially because we tend to like compare, let's say, our visual skills against skills of the best UI designers. But maybe they're, I don't know, prototyping skills or soft skills not as strong as your skills, but we like humans just tend to kind of compare like the best ones. Like, we choose always the best ones instead of just maybe choosing like normal people. And so we create this image of like a kind of super person that does not really exist.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. I'm going to unmute people based on the order they raised their hand. So Hong?
Hi, yes. Hi, Olia. Thank you so much for giving us your time to present. And my question, you actually kind of answered earlier. It's about how important is it for me to include like an afterthoughts, like the what have I learned section at the end of the a case study, since it's already so packed. I was like, will recruiter ever really get to the bottom of the page and read what have I learned?
Yeah, I think it's actually one of the most important sections. At least, yeah, it seems like in most cases, recruiter, they just like quickly scroll and scan your case study, but they do tend to focus on the intro and conclusion, and then just kind of quickly scan the rest of the case study just to make sure that like you went through all the stages, that you follow the design process, that like you do share the like reasoning behind your design. So your design like solutions. So yeah, I think it's important to include the like what would I do differently, or what are the next steps.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, just to sorry, I also want to mention this is important just because like the design project never stops, and like it's never like nothing is ever perfect. So you will keep iterating and iterating and iterating. That's why it's so important to focus on like your next steps, just to give this idea that like you understand that this is not the perfect solution.
Awesome, thank you. We're gonna go for our next raised hand, SM Pere.
Hi, thanks again for giving the talk. It was very insightful. I think I'm having a hard time understanding the importance of separating out the portfolio from the slide deck that you would take to the interviews. And also, is it really important to have a website or online portfolio to show hiring managers, or can we stick to a traditional like PDF portfolio?
Yeah, so let me address the first question first. And that's a really good question. So first of all, why I recommend you to have two different formats. So your portfolio, so like when an HR person or a hiring manager is going to look at your portfolio, the online or like your website portfolio, you're not going to be next to that portfolio. So the portfolio should do all the work, right? So like that's why it's so important to write everything in details, explain your reasonings, and explain your solution. When you are going to present on site, you will be the one who is presenting. So you won't need to have site detailed descriptions anymore, and that it does not make a lot of sense to show the text during your presentation. So your portfolio, your deck should be designed in a way that supports what you are saying versus doing the work for you.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, and in terms of the format, I'm not sure actually how it's important. I can just like share my experience that I think these days I only see online portfolios. I haven't seen like a PDF or any other forms for a while. Yeah, in most cases, designers do have online portfolios these days, especially because it's so easy to create it. There are so many tools, like you don't need to know how to code, you don't need to know how to purchase a domain name anymore. You can just go to platforms such as Fix or Squarespace or UXfolio. There's like a long list of different platforms, and they provide you template, they provide you domain name. So why would you not do that? It's pretty simple and it looks super professional.
I think the question was mainly because like I feel like with those online websites, there's definitely a cost associated with them as opposed to going for a traditional PDF, which is a little bit more cost effective. I think that's the only reason I was kind of pursuing that avenue. But thank you so much.
Totally, no worries.
Awesome. You have a lot of raised hands, so we'll try to get to as many people as we can, and we're going to be taking a group photo at the last 2 minutes, so make sure to stay on for that. And Christina, you're up next.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask about, so first of all, thank you so much for giving this presentation. This was really helpful. I was wondering what the best way to organize the text and image on your case study, like how do you combine them in a way that's intuitive and tells the story well and also flows well? Because right now, I've heard from my mentors that I have too many words. And sometimes I just don't really know what images to put in there, like especially in the intro and like in the user research. I don't really have any images to show. So I'm not sure if you would recommend like having all the words and then having all your prototype images, like all your screens at the bottom, or having them like more, or having like the image and the text and like image text, you know what I mean?
No, yeah, that's a great question. It's not that easy to do. So like I think the easiest way would be, like you have your image and then you have a text underneath the image that explains what you did. However, it's not very easy to follow anymore, and I think the expectations are higher these days. So like you should annotate your designs or your deliverables with like the copy and text that explains what exactly I'm looking at. So as let's say, like as I mentioned, HR, they don't have a lot of time, or even hiring managers, so they won't be like reading long long paragraphs. But if you annotate your screens and like you focus their attention on like one thing at a time, that's going to be so much easier for them to follow. So like you should be the one who kind of decides on how they will see your case study. With the, like you need to use the hierarchy, so like you need to use your design skills to lead them through your case study. And you should definitely not like group just images together and the text together. So pretty much every image that you include on your case study should has an explanation, should be annotated. So yeah, does it make sense? Does it helpful?
Yeah, that makes sense. And one more thing, I was just wondering if you have any advice on where to find good portfolios to look at.
Yeah, I think, first of all, there are a lot of articles written about, like 20 best UX portfolios or like 10 best 2020 UX portfolios. I think that's the first thing that you can do, and it's pretty easy to find. I think there is one, I don't remember the website that has like a, it's like a collection of portfolios. So I'll try to find it after the event, and I hope Chris will be able to share that with you guys. Will we be able to do that?
Yeah, I can share any resources. I have all the emails. I can email it all to you afterwards.
Okay, so yeah, I'll send, I think I have like a list of places where like examples of good portfolios, or places where you can see like collections of good portfolios.
Thank you so much.
Totally.
So our next person is Arth, so I'm going to unmute you.
Hi, thanks so much for giving this presentation. I just had a question about, so like I have my case studies, right? But it's only like 3 of them. And I have other projects I want to show because I worked hard on them. But is there another way to present them aside from case studies? Like, can I just show like a preview of like the final outcome for them along with my case studies? Or is it appropriate to just have case studies on your portfolio?
So why can't you make those like the project that you mentioned, like the one that you would like to include? Why can't you just like organize them in the case study format as well?
Well, I'm already like writing like 3 other ones. It's just a lot of work, and I'm trying to like apply as soon as possible. It's more of like a time restriction,
Totally. No, I think, yeah, as I mentioned, it's really important to show the design process. So for UI UX portfolio, unless if you are applying for like visual design roles, just showing the final outcome might actually work. But if you are targeting like UI UX roles or product design roles, so the process is more important than the final outcome. So, like it's all about solving problems, and it's less about the solution itself.
Okay, gotcha. So it's better just to include your fully fleshed out case studies. Okay.
Yeah, I think I would recommend you, doing that.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to go to our next raised hand, Sylvie.
Hi. First of all, thank you so much to Design Buddies for organizing this, and Olia. That was a really good presentation, and it totally makes sense to empathize with your clients, like your hiring managers. So my question is, I'm actually working on a case study for Zoom chat because, as you can tell, it's really disorganized. So I made it better. I actually had a few people look at it, and someone from LinkedIn, someone from Google, and they liked it, but they said it needs a little more organization. And for one of them, they mentioned that it had a little too much detail. So for example, I had one with like Post-its. I can just show you like what I put there. For example, like something like this. And they said like they don't really care, like put less words, like less of like these Post-its, and put more of like the final visual design that looks good. But what I saw, but these were very senior designers. So I'm wondering, like, I saw a lot of interns at like big tech companies as well who have case studies that are a lot more detailed and show the process a lot more than senior designers that focus a lot more on the final and the visuals and less text. So I'm wondering, like, as a junior designer trying to get a job, like, do you think it's makes sense to have more context just to show that you know the process?
So first of all, I think it's important to remember that there are like different type of roles, and even like the title can be the same. They might be looking for very different people, depending on the project, depending on the team. Like one team can actually search for like a designer who is more focused on the visual, because UI UX tend to be like a generalist kind of field, but all of us have like stronger parts of the whole process, right? So in your case, I think first of all, that's like how designers take feedback. That's an art itself, how to actually hear and how to use the feedback from other designers. So it's not that easy, and like you are the one who should make the decision, right? Like you collect all the feedback, but like don't feel obligated that you have to make all the changes. And so for a junior designer, I think it's important to focus on the final designs as well as the process. I think what I observed so far that junior designers, they tend to include maybe, like 1 or 2 screens at the end, or just like the prototype that it's not that easy for someone who's not familiar with the project to digest. So I think it should be a balance of the process plus showing the final designs, especially if you are interviewing for a customer-facing application. Visual design is very important. So I think it kind of depends on like the project and the company.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So we have a lot of raised hands, unfortunately, and just 2 minutes left. So feel free to join Design Buddies. We have a lot of mentors, and like you can ask anybody if you have any follow-up questions as well. And I just dropped Olia's contact links in the chat, so feel free to connect with her on any of these platforms. So now we're gonna do a group photo. For our group photo, everyone can turn on their camera. I'm also gonna record a video for our Instagram story, so make sure to follow us on Instagram as well. So first I'll take the photo. I'll wait for everyone to open the cameras, and then I'll let everybody wave or kind of like do whatever motions you want, and I'll record all of you for our Instagram story. So make sure to follow at design.buddies on Instagram. So I'm gonna give a countdown, a 10-second countdown for everybody to turn on their camera. There are multiple pages, so just sit tight and just follow what just like keep smiling until I'm done, until I say it's done, and then I'll instruct you guys to wave for our Instagram story. So 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, blast off. Okay, you guys are going to just keep smiling, and then once we do a second round, I'll wave. All right. There's multiple pages, so. Awesome. Cool. Now we're going to wave for our Instagram story. So keep waving until I get through all the pages. Open up Instagram. All right. Hello, buddies. Keep waving. Hello. Woo. Awesome. Thanks, y'all, for coming today. Awesome. All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming today. That concludes our event. It's exactly 3 p.m. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and join on all our social media platforms as well. We have Facebook, LinkedIn, all that jazz. And yeah, we'll be ending our event. So you're welcome to continue on the rest of your day. I'll just be dropping our links one more time. And that concludes our event. Thanks everybody for coming. We'll see you at our next event tomorrow at the Game UX panel. We have about 500 people signed up for it, so make sure to come early as well. We'll also be streaming on YouTube.
Thank
the
you.
networking file. Yeah, thanks all for coming. Let me just send the networking sheet again since it was asked. All right, you're all welcome to go anytime. Oh, YouTube channel, okay, send that as well. All right, I'm going to close off this event after I send in the YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is our Design Buddies YouTube channel, and it will be here. All right, thanks everyone for coming. This concludes our event. I'll be ending the meeting now, and hope you all have a wonderful day and have fun working on your portfolios. Remember, it's a UX project. And thank you so much, Olia, for taking your time to be on with us and sharing all your knowledge and advices for us aspiring and students breaking into UX design.
Thank you. Yeah, that was really nice. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Bye, everyone.